Hinduism and the Quest for Liberation by Craig J. Hazen. There is no such thing as Hinduism, wrote one scholar of world religions who wanted to make a provocative point with his readers. He would be right if one is thinking that Hinduism, like Islam, Sikhism, or Christianity, has a strong thread of uniform belief and practice that runs through most of its manifestations. But that is not the case for Hinduism. In fact, the word Hinduism was created as a blanket term by the British during colonial days to refer to the countless and often contradictory religions they found on the Indian subcontinent. Hinduism is best thought of as a vast family of religions that have a few cultural threads that seem to connect many of them in a very loose manner. As another scholar wrote, Hinduism is the world's least organized religion. Although contradictions among various Hindu religions are quite obvious, the idea that there would be contradictions would not necessarily be bothersome for devotees. Some Hindus are atheists. Some believe in personal gods. Others believe in God or gods, but do not believe the divine is personal, someone to whom you can pray or laud as creator of all things. But despite such disparate views, the idea of contradiction is not vexing for them. Indeed, I suppose it's fair to say that one important thread that runs through a good deal of Hindu thought is the idea that conflicting religious ideas can be embraced as readily as those that might seem to be in harmony. But a Hindu believer would consider sincere religious practice, not logical consistency, the most important and more important feature. The believer might also think that what appears contradictory on our spiritual plane might not be contradictory at higher levels of reality, and the religious beliefs of individual Hindus are often reported to change as the spiritual journey proceeds. The believer might be devoted to a particular personal deity and then discover that the deity is really an illusion that played the role of helping the believer to understand a higher truth, such as that there really are no personal gods. The contradiction was an occasion for spiritual growth. The acceptance of, or at least the non-aversion toward contradiction in religious things is an important element in understanding Hindu religions. After all, when a religion postulates the existence of millions of gods and goddesses, many of whom are thought to have their own beliefs and practices, contradictions are going to be a prominent part of the mix. Despite the huge number of inconsistencies among the various Hindu religions, there are two general concepts that appear fairly regularly, and they have to do with the nature of life and death. The first concept is that of samsara. For the most part, this is what we would call reincarnation. Samsara consists of two parts. The first is called karma, which is the impersonal law that judges our actions in this life and lays out our path for the next life. Good deeds will lead to life on a higher plane, bad deeds to life on a lower plane. The second part of samsara is rebirth. We die, karma makes its judgments, and then we are reborn based on our deeds. Samsara is seen as an endless cycle of birth, death, and rebirth. The other general concept that appears often in Hindu religions is moksha, a Sanskrit term for liberation. In a culture where one is locked into a dreaded unending series of deaths and rebirths, one would not be surprised to find religious teachings that focus on discovering a way out. Moksha is the term used to describe the freedom that is sought. Hindu traditions have emphasized at least 4 different ways to pursue moksha. They are the way of knowledge, jnana, the way of devotion, bhakti, the way of works, karma, and the way of meditation, yoga. In many cases, Christianity can only be considered a pathway of liberation. But in the case of Christianity, we are seeking to be liberated from sin and death. And our liberation is essential because, according to the Christian tradition, we have only this life to make things right, rather than millions of lifetimes as in the case of Hinduism. Our liberation is not something we earn through special knowledge, active devotion, good deeds, or inward contemplation. Rather, our liberation or salvation is a free gift from a personal God, the only God who knows us and woos us into relationship with himself. Indeed, his entire program for true freedom was to conquer sin and death on our behalf, so that we might freely worship him and enjoy him forever. Jesus Christ provides all we need to be spiritually fulfilled and fully reconciled to God.